So, invited a couple people, Igor and Josh, to see if they'll come chat with us here on Positive Disintegration's channel. Yes, quit messaging me on Facebook and come talk. And come talk. Oh, I didn't mean to give him that Hangouts link. Hello. I think I'm going to have to get an Android phone so I can. Although I like the personal challenge of Windows 10. This is titled Streaming from my Windows Lumina, but it isn't. I was just experimenting with the Uber conference. But this makes for riveting YouTube content, let me tell you. Crickets, man, crickets. All right. Well, I guess we can have a look at wow. I do a lot of stuff without realizing it. Terrifying. Well, I being one of my many eyes. Black Rifle Nation. Josh, baby. No, I can't hear you. Oh, there you are. Well, I see your little icon. Let me check your microphone. Opening cameraman. Okay, that looks good. Let me look at control room. Oh, you're not muted or anything. Did you enable your mic? Well, you just enabled your camera. Now I can see you're wearing a green hoodie. Oh. Very weird. So, what the hell goes on? Oh, I think he's going to try to dial back in. Let me send you a link from email. I can hear you now. Josh? I can see your forehead and your hoodie. Hey, man.
What's going on? Can you hear me now?
I can.
All right. Cool. What's going on, dude?
Oh, nothing. Just trying to keep it serene and keep an eye on myself, if you know what I mean.
I hear you. I was up in Virginia last night. This guy that I went to high school with, he does like crash derby stuff. He came down to North Carolina to buy a car. And this old ex-girlfriend of mine called and was like, hey, we're hanging out in the woods. Come out here with me and my mom and my family and stuff. So, like, I asked this dude, like, hey, do you want to go? He's like, all right. So we drove up there and, like, hung out in that kind of woods where it's, like, mostly hermits and hunting lodges kind of thing. Like, it's like a holler. Yeah, it's like a holler, pretty much, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the GPS was trying to take me down, not deer trails, but stuff that's like blocked off to get.
How interesting.
Yeah, it was cool. And I hadn't really hung out with this girl's mom and stepdad before, and they're hilarious. So,
hey, am I mistaken, or did you tell me you're not a truth seeker?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Somebody in recent days, I referred to them as truth seeker, and they parried, I'm not a truth seeker. I don't know if they were just being flip but you shouldn't disregard a question or a statement like that.
I don't know, man. I mean, maybe they don't want to be like esoteric truth seeker, you know?
Yeah, I noticed there's kind of a gripe about the meta topics that I want to get on.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Some of that stuff is like Edgar Winter, for example. He's got some really interesting information, but he starts getting into more metaphysical topics, and I don't know. It's not like what everybody's down for. Some people just want the science. Some people just want the meta stuff. You know what I mean?
If you know what I mean, I'm kind of I'm not really a poet either.
You're a poet and you didn't know it, but your feet show it because they're Longfellows.
I'm a Gnostic and didn't know it. Did you read that article from Miguel on the difference between a Gnostic and a Christian?
No, I didn't. I haven't really been. I got home at like 3 today, and then I just kind of fell asleep until 9. Which wasn't that smart to do, but that's what I did.
It was him kind of republishing a list made by his friend or frenemy Nathaniel Merritt.
I see.
Yeah, and I was blown away by what Nate said in that because I didn't even realize it, but I was applying the Sermon on the Mount to myself inwardly and sort of trying to share that as a way of coping with friends way back. I mean, a while back, maybe 2008 or something. And so he says, one of these differences is that a Christian, will be very well. I don't want to misquote the man. So I even forget that I'm not a Christian.
As super accurate as I'd like it to be.
Huh?
You can summarize it. What does he say?
Let me pull it up. I don't want to do an injustice to the spirit of the thing. It'll take me a sec. Looking in my email. Oh, let me go back one. So what's your YouTube channel?
I don't really have a channel. have a login. I mean, it's what I use for work and stuff.
Did you see Julian's paper today?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been paying attention to anything, man. I've been asleep most of the day.
Oh, okay. Here.
Julian who? Bonge?
Here, let me share this.
Julian Jewell, the techno guy.
Julian, the myths or history guy. Here, let me share screen. Okay, so as the holiday season wanes and the new year looms, like a bleak canyon under the winter skies, I have been reminiscing in a reminiscing mood like many. One person in my mind has been Nathaniel Merritt. His book, Jehovah Unmasked, greatly assisted my exorcism of orthodox demons and digital baptism into heresy more than a decade ago. In fact, after I invited Nate on my nascent podcast, and Miguel's been podcasting for 10 years, dude, back then called Coffee, Cigarettes, and Gnosis, became a friend and a regular blogging contributor at the old site. In truth, his ideas on Gnosticism were foundational to both the show and to my own writings. Times changed, though, and we parted ways as contributors and friends. It wasn't an amicable split. Like most complicated stew of ideological, circumstantial, and egoic ingredients, both sadly avoidable and ultimately inevitable, as the ending of most friendships are. Years later, I heard he had died of heart complications. Nate had always struggled with heart disease. To this day, I still view his memory with fondness and inspiration. Nate was a freakish and incendiary trinity of Gnostic dualist, Greek Orthodox sleeper cell, and Zen priest. He was actually an ordained one. Zen priest, that is. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just making noise with the dishes, so I muted it.
I did. You're banging around there, so I knew you were there for a minute.
But just I figure if I'm making so much noise, I should mute it.
Oh, that's very kind. Okay, Nate wasn't a unique snowflake, but napalm from the gods, and his wisdom and warmth were salvific at times. During that reminiscing mood, I found a writing of my former friend and foe, frenemy, I'd say. I added that word. He didn't write frenemy. And I share it with you, True Seeker Warriors. Here is Nate's The Difference Between a Gnostic and a Christian. A Christian is an unquestioning believer. A Gnostic questions everything, especially religious dogmas. A Christian believes what they're told to believe. A Gnostic stands upon the ground of their own inner sight and knowing. A Christian wields a handy battle axe made by a very petty despot who commands them to kill. A Gnostic lives by the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah, see, I wouldn't have gotten that right. A Christian will kill or die over a single word in the creed, a mere abstraction that exists nowhere except the Christian's mind. A Gnostic knows there isn't a shred of divine reality in any or all words. I started to expound on that idea, and I find it quite a fruitful thing, although with words. A Christian is an abject worshiper of petty, irrational dictator God. A Gnostic bows to no God except his or own innate divinity. A Christian has no God greater than a human shell of a man, a God easily comprehended by the human mind. The inner divinity of the Gnostic is limitless. A Christian believes myths to be actual events that took place on the stage of history. A Gnostic sees and understands such myths are symbols of a mythic inner journey and transformation. Wise words, I'd say, and I'm not saying I identified with a lot of this. I think a lot of it is a little advanced for me, but wise words, I would say, but both Nate and I would be the first to admit the terms Christian and Gnostic are interchangeable today. And that's why I was saying, Josh, that even I was saying that, you know, I'm a Christian for my part, but I think I'd have to say I'm a Gnostic. As many modern Gnostics can be extremely literalistic and intolerant, while the world is full of Christian seeds by the imaginative spirit of Sophia. I should read that again. Both Nate and I would be the first to admit that the terms Christian and Gnostic are interchangeable today, as many modern Gnostics can be extremely literalistic and intolerant, while the world is full of Christian seized by the imaginative spirit of Sophia. That's true. But it's still a sensible list, perhaps even a daily checklist, a check on our state of spirituality. Nate's words certainly remind me of what another tortured and searching soul, John Lennon, said in his Playboy interview many moons ago. It seems to me that the only true Christians were the Gnostics, who believed in self-knowledge, i.e. becoming Christ themselves, reaching the Christ within. The light is the truth. Turn on that light. Turn on the light. All the better to see you with, my dear. That's a strange little Big Bad Wolf reference. Oddly enough, someone emailed me a few years ago claiming Nate was still alive, even if I had read about his death in an obituary sent by a listener. The individual said Nate was simply laying low, but would return to the internet at the right time. As of now, I haven't heard of Nate's return to cyberspace. Perhaps, like Jesus, there will never be a second coming, but only an eternal footprint in my heart. Until it's time for that heart to fail too, and then I might continue with my discussions with the old Zen priest. I will see you, Nate. I will see the Nate much better this time. Yes, I know what he means by that. So this is the guy I was trying to turn you on to, Miguel Connor. Let me stop screen sharing. He really has been an inspiration to me. He's got the chops. He's done the work, you know, and he's kind of a journalist, as it were, on the Gnostic circuit. His website is thegodabovegod.com. Which brings me to the thing with the soul Invictus. That was the subject of Julian's paper.
Julian, the one you were looking at the other day.
Yeah, Julian, Mr. Myths or History is his page on Facebook.
Okay.
He's a really, really nice guy. And he's, oh my God, I had no idea he knew Greek.
He's Greek? Is that what you said?
No, he knows Greek.
A lot of people have studied that. I don't think the old Greek is much different than it hasn't changed that much.
I wouldn't know.
I mean, I would think that it would, but apparently it hasn't.
What about Coptic?
Who speaks Coptic?
I don't think anybody speaks it.
Well, they speak Greek in Greece. That was my point.
Oh,
it's still an active, alive language.
Well, Coptic is Egyptian, right? Egyptian written down using Greek letters.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So Gospel of Thomas, I believe, was in Coptic. So yeah, so this gets very meta, but you'll find that you will find right in the very heart and soul of the Thunderbolts group, people like Michael Armstrong, who are, represent sort of the theological side of things. Like it's a big tent, Josh, the electric universe.
A lot of people don't like to know is that despite the fact that the evolution people like to say nobody with a brain believes in a God, in fact, it's pretty much split right down the middle. And there's people that go and study and become PhDs or engineers or whatever, and they decide they don't like God, but there's just as many people that switch the other direction too, you know?
Yeah,
it's not like this one-sided thing. It's just that the people who decide to believe in God know it's not popular, so they don't go walking all over the place screaming about it too much. Not in science circles anyway. But I mean, I've talked to biologists who told me, yeah, I grew up an atheist, and when I got into biology, I just was marveled at this stuff, and I don't see how this can be an accident, you know?
Exactly. I've heard a lot of those apologetics.
What do you mean?
Well, aren't those isn't that Christian or monotheistic apologetics?
What do you call it? Apologetics? Does it say I'm sorry I can't believe in nothing?
I may be misusing the term. Let's look it up. Define apologetics. Yeah, I found that as I tried to get over myself, a reasoned argument in writings in justification of something, typically a theory or religious doctrine, as in free market apologetics. Make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a reasoned argument. So I was exactly right. That's monotheistic apologetics, which is great because, I actually have learned to be able to listen to people, and the harder it is to hear what they're saying, the more I want to hear it. And I don't mean,
why do you say harder to hear?
Trash. I mean like listening to reasoned arguments and evidence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, people forget that there's these age-old debates that have been going on forever about is there God, is there not a God? Like the whole evolutionary push thing comes from the Catholic Church, like decapitating people who just don't agree with them. I mean, they have a very long history of that kind of. So, in a way, we should be able to think for ourselves. And some people that get angry enough about it, they're like, we need to kill God to get rid of these people. But the truth is like that they're two different things. It's a sentiment of thinking it's okay to just lop somebody's head off, when actually, if you're a thinking person, what you're saying is people that live by the Sermon on the Mount. Well, that's what Christians are supposed to be doing. It's not the other way around. How did Christianity turn into something that not what Christ says to do? If that makes sense to you. You have to figure it's turned into something else. If you want to, you look at what did the first century Christians do? What did they think? How did they behave? And it's not that crazy. You can read it right in the Bible, how the letters and the God, how does it all fit together, and how are you supposed to behave? You're not supposed to go lop people's heads off because they don't read.
Right.
But that's what it's gotten to. So are these big churches that foment wars, are they really Christian, or have they become like a way to control people and brainwash people and, center around the power that the nations have, the nation states kind of thing?
Well, I'm not them. I'm not that person who's in that church, but I have to say.
But you understand what I'm saying, right?
like a kind of control.
Yeah, I mean, Christianity has been used to control the masses for a while. Even I think it was Paul who said, like, after we die off, a great apostasy is going to rise up, and that's exactly what happened. You know, they knew it would never last more than a generation. And then, yeah, it would change the world, but not, you know, it wouldn't be like the form that they, which was created there by Christ and his followers.
There's a great
You understand?
deal. Yes, I do. I find a lot of depth in your words.
Yeah, but the thing is like, it's not like it's hidden information. You can just read their reasoning and their behavior and how the congregation was supposed to behave and all that. It's not hidden information. It's hidden if you don't read it. I mean, how many people do you know that say they're Christian, but they don't really know what they believe even? They don't attend, they don't read the Bible. They just know they kind of like that idea because when they were growing up, their mom taught them what was right. You know?
Yeah.
They don't even know what they believe.
Well,
so in that way, I might agree with some of the things what this guy's saying, you know? But a Christian would not foment a war. A Christian wouldn't take part in a war. You're supposed to lay your swords in the plowshares. So,
well, but you love your enemies, except that he forced your hand.
But I wouldn't fight in a war. That's not for me. You're supposed to live in this world and not be a part of it.
Be passers-by, yeah.
You're not supposed to take part in this kind of political debate. To Caesar's thing to Caesar.
Right. So yeah, don't.
God's thing to God. Like you do what Caesar wants, but
as there's such a thing as if you're not the one initiating the force, you become a party to it if you don't resist it. And you might need to resist it all the way up to
see, I don't know if I agree with that. Like if people are in I don't know, let's say there's a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah on the planet, like do you need to go there and resist them and tell them they're wrong and force your hand to them or not? It's very simple.
I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with the enemy who's going to use violence and force to control others.
Of course. But God says vengeance is mine. You know, like,
well, it's not
Christians have never been the majority. They've always been the smallest minority. You let these other people worry about their stuff. Like when Jesus came to Jerusalem and all the people were out there waving palm branches as he's riding in on a donkey, because what did they think? They think they're getting a new king. And he blew through there like, hey man, I'm not here to be your king. I'm here to be a spiritual king. I'm here to save your soul, but I'm not here to take over the country. Forget it. Like, you got the wrong idea, people. You know, like that's our example. He didn't come to like run the place. He's already going to inherit that from his father, right?
What about this business of coming back and ruling with an iron rod?
Well, that's a little different. And the reason is, and this is, I think, something that we talked about a little bit, and this is the way that I see it, is that this time since Adam and Eve started is like the whole point of it is to show everybody that if you throw the system out of balance, it's not going to work. So you're either going to be a part of a balanced system where everything works together,
right?
And we follow these simple things that are not unreasonable, that actually benefit us and benefit everybody. And we won't need police. We won't need any of this crap. We're going to live forever, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like if you find another dissenter, like a Satan kind of character that comes and tries to rile up, you know, problems, what do you do with them? You're going to have to rule with an iron rod. You know, like, hey, look, that's enough. This guy's got to go, or it has to be taken care of. I don't know how all that can happen, but it can't be that people are allowed to throw the machine out of balance anymore. You know, because look at all the suffering we've had for the last 7,000 years. The issue will
Well, I
be
think
solved after this.
if you're going to be deviant, you should exercise discretion, you know, especially around other people's values.
There's more than that, though. I mean, you know, the issue Satan raised was like, do we really need you, God? You know, can't we do what we want to do? You know, like, can't we learn as fast as we want to learn? And it was kind of a simple thing. Like, the angels had been in heaven a long time. They learned a lot of stuff. They've been around for who knows how long. You know, who knows if they're much more intelligent than us, or maybe they're just smarter than us because they've been around so long. But either way, Adam and Eve didn't really know anything. They're just in this construct of a planet, walking around eating fruit and naming animals. You know, they had no idea. They're just like little young, innocent nothings. Like, we know so much more than they ever did
Yes,
at this time in history. What's that?
our knowledge has gone forward without understanding.
Well, I mean, we know a lot, but I mean, you know, like, what does the scripture say? The fear of Jehovah is the beginning of wisdom. And it's not like a deathly fear, like he's going to kill me. It's a fear that you have that this all-wise person who is defined as is love, why would you want to disappoint them? And also the larger ramifications of maybe like, you know, vandalizing his artwork, like what Satan plainly seems to do. He's trying to kill everything on the planet. I mean, it's tantamount to vandalizing the artwork in a way, if you look at it like that. You know, this beautiful machine that has so many backup systems. If one fails, the next one kicks in and nobody even notices, kind of stuff. Like, you know that
Well, is Satan a created being? Or wait, isn't Satan?
yeah, he's a
different
created
from
being.
Lucifer? Aren't they different? Like, aren't they different people altogether, Lucifer and Satan?
According to what I know, no, it's the same thing. Like, Satan is the first lie. He created the lie, and he's the one that's jealous of God having an all-powerful everything, and he wants to be able to create his own construct, and he doesn't like it that he doesn't have a say.
Isn't that a little binary, like kind of well, simplistic?
Does it have to be complicated?
No,
I mean,
but
look.
I think it's a lot more nuanced.
Well, I mean, look, there's more to it, but like, you're still going to find that the switch is either on or off. It's either 0 or 1 at
Well,
the end of the day.
What about live and let live? No, it's not a static machine. I think it's a system.
What decision is what I mean.
Chaotic at one end.
But it's harmonic. Like, we're the only thing that's chaotic in here. Everything else has a harmony.
Oh, I don't
You
know
know?
about that.
Yeah.
Animals that are doing violence to each other.
Yeah. But they're also balancing the system out. You know, those animals don't suffer too much. You know, even a cat that kills a mouse plays with it for a little bit and it's already dead. You know, it doesn't live too long. Like, humans are the ones who like drag out death and torture people over long periods of time. Animals don't do that.
No, they don't.
You know, even
So
if they
they're not
eat them alive.
All right. So if you're talking about sadism, that's evil.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you could say it's evil to just not be the best person you could be around other people because you rub off on them. You know, your ideas will get into their head.
Well,
it only takes one drop of poison to make a glass of water.
Igor had to say was quit worrying about the receiver and just be as truthful, you know, as genuine, not truthful, but as genuine as you can be without apology. So you don't have doubt, which is paralyzing. If you're doubting yourself,
well, that can be true.
About hurting others with just being who you are, well, then suddenly your very existence becomes a crime.
Well, that's not balanced either, you know. But if you don't know how to move forward, like what can hurt us and what can't, like what was the lie that the snake told the told Eve. Like, you will know the difference of good and bad, and you won't die. Lies that he told. Reality, we still don't know good and bad, and we're dying.
Yeah, I
You hear me?
I don't believe in the I'm not a Christian, so I don't believe. I believe that may be a scam.
But see, I don't see it as a scam. For me, it makes complete sense. Like, logically, it makes sense to me. Like, I don't see how there can be any other answer, is actually the way that I see it. Like, even from a reductive view of like how all these things fit together logically, you know?
Well, man becomes a criminal, but that whole idea of what's it called, original sin, that didn't come along until one of the church fathers came up with it.
It was always there. The Jewish people believed in that. And they had to atone for that by doing this like a sacrifice. And all that really was just to remind them that, hey, you're kind of messed up. You need to remember that. You know, you need to keep yourself in check. You know, like, what good does it do the creator of the universe that you sacrifice an animal for him? Nothing. It's for us. It's to remind us that we need to keep ourselves in check.
No, I say go vegan.
What's that?
I say go vegan.
I've thought that. Have you ever been a vegan for a while?
I have. Not a good one, but yes.
I mean, don't you feel amazing when you're just eating fruits and vegetables and nuts and avocados and stuff? I mean, you get thin, you get a lot of energy, you age backwards.
Well, you're not
when you do
taking
that.
part in the violence either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that too. But I mean, just there's all of that stuff together.
For me, it's more the idea of the not taking part in the overall violence. But
yeah, and I can get that because, you know, I love eating chicken and steak and stuff, but if I had to kill an animal to eat, I don't know if I could do it.
Right. See, that was my idea, was that I would only eat meat if I killed it myself and was, you know, satisfied that the animal had been given a decent life and cared for sufficiently.
And the problem is, we know that doesn't happen. So that's a big issue. Yeah, no. They treat the animals like crap.
Right. So that's where husbandry comes in, and, you know, the patriarchal impulse for us.
Well, I mean, look, it happened to me one time when I was a kid. I got a BB gun, and I remember sitting up in the window, like, looking at this bird, and my mom comes and catches me and says, "Don't you kill that bird," right? And so I sat up there for a long time looking at the bird, and I finally just shot it, and it fell right on the ground. Boom, just like that. It killed it. And I thought, and it, like, this rush of angst and pain and despair washed over me, that I had taken the life of something that was alive. You know, I'll never forget that feeling.
Well, you weren't starving at the time either.
No, I wasn't starving. But like, I just shot an animal.
Imagine your elation if you knew that was your dinner, a little squab.
Yeah, well, I mean, did you hear about this one guy that it was the guy that got trapped on Antarctica, and he had to survive and ran across like a penguin or something, and he hadn't eaten for days and couldn't drink anything, and he just consumed the animal kind of halfway alive, and it was the most delicious thing he ever had. And like that kind of thing where you're starving and you get this thing and just start eating it. You know,
so take this, all of you. This is my body, given for you to sustain yourselves. What? There's that whole cannibal thing.
No, but that's not cannibal. That's not cannibal.
Well, we're lucky that we've never known that kind of privation where we would be compelled.
Absolutely.
Now, I hear the dignified way to do that is to draw straws, and the short straw is the guy who has to do the killing, and the second shortest straw, if I've got this right, is the guy who gives up his life for his comrades.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I've never had to face something like that.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't. Did you see this movie called Alive?
Yeah,
Where
years
the
ago.
I when I lived in Uruguay, I met a guy that came from California because he saw that movie. He's like, I want to go live with those people. So he came. He just decided to move to Uruguay for that reason, from that one movie. Because
I
it was,
thought they were Chilean.
I guess, no, I think they were Uruguayans stuck on a Chilean mountain, but it might have been Chileno people. It could have been two football teams in that airplane for all I know. I never saw it,
Oh, you never
but
saw it? Okay, I saw it, but I didn't. I didn't really want. Let's just say I didn't empathize that deeply with the situation at the
right,
time back then.
it's kind of almost hard to put yourself in that position. I don't know. It's pretty rough to think about it, but I mean, if you think about what we have nowadays versus what people even had 200 years ago, your common person lives better than any king in the last 6,000 years for the most part. Like we have electricity, we have plumbing, we have food
Well,
delivered
perhaps
to
to
us,
his
and
detriment. Maybe it's not such a good thing.
I'm not sure that it is. I mean, I don't know. I tend to like go back to the story of Genesis where he's like, okay, like now the earth's not going to just give you food for free. You're going to have to work from it, and from the sweat of your brow you'll eat.
You'll
And
eat
if
bread from the sweat of thy brow.
Yeah, and like think about it. The people that do farming tend to be kind of happy, and people that just get out and do a little gardening, like sticking your hands in the earth and doing that, there's something to it that gives people calmness and peace in their life.
Yeah.
It's like our task. It's what we've been tasked with. But
So have you got yourself some land outside the cities?
I'd love to. I live with my brother here, but we have like a little garden in the summertime, and just mostly tomatoes and stuff. And I've talked him into putting like fruit trees and stuff on the property, blueberry bush and a pomegranate tree, which are like not growing very good, but they seem to have survived. And then in the front, we got two pear trees and a peach tree that are saplings.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it makes more of a mess for doing the lawn, but if it was me, one of the things I sometimes think about is like I have a goal to get enough money together to buy a house. And do I want to buy a house, or do I want to buy 10 acres of land somewhere that I can grow stuff on and put like a tiny house or something like that on it?
Yeah.
And then like slowly build an earthship there. But like basically live in an orchard kind
So
of
you want to
situation.
save the money and buy it outright?
Yeah, I don't like having debt.
No, I don't either. I find it very troublesome.
Yeah, I mean, and plus my financial life is so up and down. It's very feast or famine for me. Something like 8 months ago, I was wondering if I needed to get an EBT card, which is like food stamps,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I understand.
But I worked my ass off, and now I'm making pretty decent money, but it's not huge, and it's flickers. It's like going great, then this week it's okay, and then the next week is great, and then might not be. Oh, it'll be okay for a few weeks. It just depends on how much I can talk my vendors into sending me stuff, and how troublesome their leads that they send me are. If I can keep buying from them and this sort of thing, so it's a constant battle.
What I got really excited about most recently was the vape.
Yeah, are you trying to like be a part of that business, or what do you
Yeah,
mean?
I would love to find a way to get into there because it isn't my entry into the vape community was one of confusion and guesswork and not the greatest hospitality. But
I
then
see.
there may be a reason for that I'm not aware of.
Well, I do notice that a lot of people don't want more people in their business, you know, more competition. But I would think if you're the guy that can make up the vape juice, you know, like have some kind of organic stuff that's not bad for you and it tastes good and people like it, like
Or maybe
probably
has a
people
little
will reorder.
Heisenberg in it. I was watching
Yeah, yeah,
Indoor
exactly.
Smokers.
You know, whatever it is that your secret sauce is.
Yeah. I was watching Indoor Smokers yesterday, a new episode.
Well,
And then, yeah, they
Heisenberg.
come out with a Pinkman Pink and a Heisenberg Blue.
Nice.
One of these vape companies, one of these juice companies. Yeah. So, well, that really upsets a lot of people who are terribly concerned about what you and I put in ourselves, put in our bodies.
Yeah, well, I think that's ridiculous too. It should be that, you know, I just don't think that the police can come around and say what you can or cannot put in your body. That's ridiculous.
Well,
You know,
I like to quote the quote from Jesus, which is, a man is not defiled by what he puts into himself, but what comes out.
well, I'd like to see that one. Is that in the book of Thomas, the Thomas book?
Oh, I think that one might be in a regular Bible. Let me look it up. Let me come back.
I mean, there is truth in that. I mean, like you can get drunk, but you're still responsible for what you do and say when you're drunk.
Absolutely.
You can't use that as an excuse.
Absolutely.
And most people cannot deal with that. You know, there's another scripture that says,
the
like,
devil
if you can
do it. The devil
if
made
you-
me do it. But see, that's
right.
what's coming out of his body. You know, it's like a man not defiled by what he eats. Here we go. It's in Matthew. Let's
Okay,
see.
yeah, but he's also probably talking about
No. Hold on. It's man not defiled by what enters his mouth, but what comes out of it.
right.
Which I think is,
Right.
is so
Yeah,
true. It's kind
he
of
was already pointing to like that things were going to change. Like he was going to get rid of the Mosaic Law Code. You know, because they couldn't eat. You know, the whole Jewish diet, they can't eat certain things. And it harkens back to like nobody knew how to cook pigs back then. You know, if you didn't cook it all the way through, you're going to die. But like you can cut a piece of a cow that's alive off of it and just eat it, and nothing will happen to you. You won't get sick, you know. But by then, yeah, by then they had already learned how to cook all that stuff, so it stopped being really an issue. You know, but he was talking about something bigger too, and that is like that the Jews were originally always destined to be like the ones who brought everybody in the rest of the world to God, but they gave up their seat. You know,
I don't know.
Like Esau and Jacob.
You're familiar with John Lash and the knot in his image?
No.
Yeah, well, that whole take on it, you know, that it's a kind of a Jewish supremacy, and that God, or Jehovah rather, has pitted us against each other by making one a chosen people.
Well, that was the whole point of what Jesus did. He got rid of a chosen people, you know, and everybody can get in. But he's always had some people that he kept close to him. You could go become a Jew. You could go live there. They would take you in. You just had to live by the law.
Yeah, when I was trying to enlist back in, I guess, 08,
As a Jew or as in the military?
In the military, I was trying to enlist, and I said I wanted to be a Messianic Jew. Well, it had Satanist in there, but no Messianic Jew.
Interesting.
Isn't it? So yeah,
It didn't change. He just, it was the thing that the deal that he made with Abraham that said, look, I'm going to make a mighty nation from your loins because you're the guy that cares. I can see that you're good, you know? And even that's interesting to me, even from an epigenomic standpoint. But the Jews were rowdy. You know, they got really rowdy and crazy, and they were always worshiping false gods and making dungy idols on their roof and all that kind of stuff. And even when Moses brought them out of Egypt, they had to go make a golden calf, you know? So it's like, what did Solomon say? You know, like God's like, okay, you're going to be the one that's going to be in charge. And Solomon said, instead of giving me long life or a lot of money or a bunch of hot girls, like, can you give me wisdom? Because these people are so unruly. I just don't even know how I'm going to rule them well. Right. And that's what made him. God said, okay, I'll give you wisdom. And he gave him everything else too.
Yeah.
But,
He philosopher king. Had
well,
it all
I mean,
to find out that you don't need anything to be happy, just the Epicurean formula, the Epicurean pharmacopoeia, which is right. Well, let's look it up. Let's look up the formula of Epicurus.
well, I know the one thing about Solomon is that he walked well for a long time, but he kept getting married to all these foreign wives, and they brought in their other gods, and he ended up worshiping other gods and stuff. And that was really the big decline, because when he was rolling, they just had tons of money. Everything was fine. They didn't need that much, but they had way more than they needed, you know? But he didn't die a faithful guy. He died unfaithful. He gave up.
Plotinus. Who, Solomon?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from what you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tend to think that the Bible actually is, if you read it, it never says only the good about people. I mean, it's like the most honest historical book you can find. Like, even just look at
Yes,
what the
I've heard that
Egyptians wrote.
argument. Yes, that it doesn't glamorize the Jews.
It doesn't glamorize them at all. And in fact, it's like, if you look at what the Egyptians wrote about themselves, like, they never lost a war. You know, and that's the story with most of these groups like Medo-Persia and so on, is that they don't even write historically accurate about themselves. Maybe a few people wrote about them. And so you got to see when the kings changed hands and stuff. But, you know, even like recently they found the city of Ur, which archaeologists said didn't exist, and boom, it shows up. You know, it's in the Bible there. And that was one of the things that they would argue about, the archaeologists would, like, well, there's no city of Ur. I don't know if we can take this Bible seriously, you know?
Oh.
There's just more and more evidence like that pops up.
Here, I've gone to religious facts. I just pulled this up. I've never been here. Religiousfacts.com. Let me turn on the screen share. About Epicurus. Epicurean is the ancient Greek philosophical system, Epicureanism, taught by Epicurus. It emphasized the goal of a happy and content life in the here and now, both rejecting both superstitious fear of the gods and notions of afterlife. Through the modern use of the term Epicurean associated with saying eat, drink, and be merry, Epicureanism did not advocate simple pursuit of bodily pleasure and differed significantly from hedonism. The life of Epicurus is better known than any of his contemporaries, and he is more of a personality than any other ancient philosopher, with the exception of Socrates. He was born in 341 BC in the Athenian colony of Samos. And in 307 and 306, he settled in Athens, where he bought a house and with a garden. Yeah. Funny you would mention that. Sounds like he was living the hobbit life.
Well, I mean, you know, the simple life does work.
It does.
You know, any of the people that you know that are just they're fine in life. It's like they have what they have, and that's enough, and they just try to enjoy themselves, and that's enough. You know,
Yes.
don't hurt other people. Try to be good. Try to be the person that you want other people to treat you as, and
Oh, you'll like
um,
this, Josh, because this is echoing your own sentiment from a moment ago. He gathered a group of disciples and taught became known as, I guess we should say, what became known as the philosophy of the garden. Epicurus and his disciples formed a close-knit community, living a life of austere contentment in seclusion on his property. He admitted both women and slaves to his community, which, along with his seclusion and atheism, quote unquote, probably led to rumors and criticisms that circulated about his school. Epicurus was a father figure to his students and wrote letters of instruction to the Epicurean communities he formed. Epicurus died in 270 BC. His followers celebrated his birthday to give him honors as to a god. No later figure of importance arose in his school, and unlike the changes common to other philosophical schools, Epicureanism was characterized by a conservative tendency in preserving the founder's teachings. Epicureanism was highly influential in the Hellenistic age. The Epicureans and Stoics were the chief rivals for the allegiance of educated people of this period. Both had a continuing influence, but it was Stoicism, with its active involvement in public life, the philosophy of the porch instead of the garden, ultimately appealed to more individuals and had more influence. Epicurus is said to have written about 300 scrolls, but little of this survives. His teachings are preserved in 3 letters and a collection of 40 maxims known as principal doctrines, or the Kyrie Doxia. Sorry, my pronunciation is probably incorrect. The works of Philodemus, a 1st century BC Epicurean, discovered at Herculaneum, and a large 2nd century inscription in Lycia have further added to our knowledge of Epicurus. Okay, beliefs. Epicurus taught materialistic view of the universe. The whole of nature consists of matter and space. All matter is divisible down to the level of atoms. They are eternal, neither created nor destroyed. They cannot be seen or felt with the senses, but they do have size, shape, weight, and motion. Atoms operate according to natural law. Thus, there is no creation and no purpose in nature. Wow. Epicurus also rejected belief in an afterlife. The soul is also made of atoms, though of a subtler sort than the body. Body and soul must be joined to give life, and when the body dies, the soul disintegrates. The soul also disintegrates. Therefore, there is no need to fear either death nor future punishment. Epicurus did not believe in gods. The vision of gods in dreams and universal opinion of humanity proved their existence. Did believe in gods. The visions of gods in dreams and universal opinion of humanity proved their existence. But he regarded them as made of atoms, like everything, immortal because their bodies did not dissolve, and living in happy, detached society out of contact with humans. There is no place for prayer or fear of the gods. Epicurus saw religion as a source of fear. Banishing religion made peace of mind possible. He could be said to have had a theology without a religion. The Epicurean purpose, I like that. I could say I'm kind of like that too. The Epicurean purpose of life is peace of mind, happiness, and pleasure. But Epicurean pursuit of pleasure was neither hedonism nor self-indulgence. Epicurean primarily promoted the pleasures of the mind, friendship, and contentment. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it sounds like this guy was quite a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even like the idea that spirit creatures have to definitely be made of something. They're just made of a higher state of energy. You know, and I don't know, everything you're telling me makes sense. I can imagine a lot of people would love this guy. You know,
Well, barely had a following. Epicurus noted that it is human nature to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and made this the basis of his guidelines for living. We must exercise ourselves in the things which bring happiness, since if that be present, we have everything. Sounds like hobbits. And if that be absent, all our actions are directed towards attaining it. Yeah, so you people like Igor trying to get the free energy up and going and trying to make a better world. They want this for other people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's man's nature. Like, yeah, do I believe in that original sin? Yes, but I think that naturally we don't like to hurt anybody. It's not our nature to want death and destruction and pain and
So
hurtful
that's your
things.
belief, but you're not worried about it.
No, look, we all have an original sin, but I also believe that God forgives. Like he has like a minimum standard for us right now. It's just a couple things, like you're not supposed to murder and so on, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're supposed to atone for these things, and like when you know that you've messed up, you fix it. Like understanding that like the way that Igor and myself probably are going to behave are going to be very similar in that he has good morals, even though he doesn't maybe take his morals from a Bible or from some holy book. He instinctively kind of knows like to be nice to people or whatever. And I think that's a big deal. Like even the Bible says that Satan kind of misleads some people that would naturally just make it past this barrier of life that we live in this existence now, because they're so good natured. They don't want bad things, they want good things, and they're chilled out and they're nice to each other, they take care of each other, they love. Like this is not an uncommon thing. I think it's more uncommon to be warlike, and that kind of stuff comes from what do you call it, not instability, but what's the word I'm looking for, where you're not confident about yourself.
Insecurity.
Yeah, I think those things come from insecurity,
Like fear of lack.
Yeah, or just fear. Like when Yoda put that little puzzle of concepts together, he wasn't wrong. Fear leads to pain leads to suffering, which leads to death, whatever.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to
Yeah, exactly. That he wasn't wrong about that. I mean,
well, he's not wrong.
We don't need to have fear. We need to have like a godly fear is like one of like, I don't want to disappoint God. Not because he can smash me like a bug, but because I don't want to hurt something that ultimately loves me more than anything else.
Well,
that's the way that I see that. Like people turn God into this angry God that blah, 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 and they don't understand any of it. Because you understand what I mean?
That, yes. You're talking about the living Father.
Yeah, the actual creator.
The God above God, not the public judge that everybody used to thump each other over the head with.
Yeah, but some of that stuff's made up too, or taken too far or out of context. There is but one creator. Like, just because you say that he believes something doesn't mean he does. Just because the Orthodox Church says I'm the king and I get to decide, blah, blah, blah. Come on. Like, the rules are the rules. God doesn't change. We turn him into a tyrant because we can only understand what we understand.
That's a very sensible and deep thing to say, that we turn him into a tyrant.
Right.
So our higher natures don't do that.
Not normally. I don't think so. I mean, maybe I'm wrong because it's the way that I've been taught to think.
No, I think you're dead on. I think that you and I are in very close agreement on this. So
yeah, I mean, even some of the stuff that you're saying is gnosis. I tend to think that's not gnosis, and you're saying, well, this is Christianity, and I tend to think the
Well, that would
opposite.
be
But
the God above
truthfully,
God.
that is how Christianity has behaved. So it's easy to define that, and it is easy to rebel against those ideas because, in fact, they're not Christian ideas.
Well,
They're
that
satanic
personal,
ideas.
that
You know,
personal.
that
Oh,
kind
hold
of
on.
behavior is base and animalistic and
Yes,
satanic.
are you
But
off
you know,
put
this,
by
the
the
Christians have been behaving like that, and so they have rightfully earned that. But
so
it's not true Christianity. It's just like the nameplate of it that's been hijacked.
wait, let's dissect because I think you're off put by the expression the God above God.
Hey, Igor, I can't hear you. Or sorry, Jack, I can't hear you.
It sounds like you're off put by the expression the God above God.
Okay, can you repeat that? Because I had my finger on the volume button by accident.
Sounds like you're off put by the expression the God above God, but it actually fits exactly with what you said about we make him into a tyrant when our higher self would actually not do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what you choose to look at. You know, even God saying like these people need to go. Um, I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. I think only God can make that decision because He's the one that can see everything. We just see this little tiny amount of information, and it's in our present right now. That's it. Like we remember what happened. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Like these kind of things that come and where God says, "I'm going to do this in the future," and it happens. He's obviously outside of our time domain. You
It's
know,
11:11.
well,
Yes.
I imagine him like looking at the universe as a flower that's constantly exploding, or you know, like this kind of thing, like a fractal that's constantly building out, like that. And maybe he already built it out X amount of billions of years into the future, or he allowed it to expand out that far, and we're in this little sliver here, but he can already see what's going to happen a billion years from now.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like with that kind of insight, you're going to make decisions that people don't really understand. I think that he puts his fingers in and changes stuff only enough to make our life better. Otherwise, he likes to leave it be. It's his beautiful self-making creation, you know? But he doesn't want it to crash. So he's going to put his fingers in back here and here and here to adjust the thing slightly so that it can keep on going a million years from now when
Well,
the system faults or whatever, you know?
you realize you're simultaneously saying no one of us can understand God's plan, or can no one of us can comprehend into our understanding that understanding and comprehension that we exist within, while simultaneously you're taking a stance on a certain understanding.
Yeah, but I mean, he tells us what's going on, and we have a gut reaction about things. You know, I mean, we inherently know it's not right to kill. We inherently know we're not supposed to murder the planet. You know, we're built in such a way. Like, I heard this one guy in artificial intelligence say some years ago, it must have been in the mid 2000s or later 2000s, that intelligence, they've been trying to define it as knowledge. And he said that this is where we've been getting artificial intelligence completely wrong, and we're not even defining intelligence correctly. He said that being able to predict what's happening or what's going to happen is actually what's intelligent. And we predict by what we've seen in the past, you know? So, like, you know that if you walk around without your shoes, if your feet are tender and you step on some glass, you're going to get cut because maybe that happened to you, or and so on. If you ride your bike in a certain kind of way, you might hurt yourself. So you can imagine these scenarios and see that one of them is the most likely. But I think that, you know, like this kind of intelligence that we have is predictive, and we don't even recognize that. And we like to be predictive in a way that we can be soothsaying. And there are guys on this planet that can see things so clearly that they know what trends are coming because they have like this kind of global brain that works that way, and they can see this is the trend and this is the obvious conclusion to this. You know, and some of them I think create it, but I think there's business guys that get rich being smart like that, you know?
Let's not forget that there can be a foolish consistency.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, this is where we don't know right from wrong. Like we have a modicum of intelligence, but we're just sort of fooling around in this existence, not knowing what we're really doing. And that's why I think that we have such a thing as a Bible to give us a guidance, because it's a manual. If you just stick by this stuff, things are going to be fine for you. And when you try to like make up something more or not pay attention to some of it,
Well, a lot of it is contrived. I mean, it's contrived by man, is it not?
well, see, I don't think that. I find that all the scripture is consistent, but it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
If you can see that it all makes sense together or not.
Yeah. Well, you're talking. I was would have told you yesterday I was a Christian. Now today I'll tell you I'm a agnostic. So wait, let's find out a little bit more. There's just a bit more here about Epicurus.
Basically,
Are you hanging
Yeah,
out
see,
with people or what?
No, I came up to the store to get some smokes.
Oh, okay. He encouraged seeking after the highest quality of pleasure, which is rarely immediate gratification of hedonism. Epicurus evaluated pleasure and pain by three main criteria: intensity, the strength of feeling; duration, the length of feeling; and purity, pleasure unaccompanied by pain. Therefore, for Epicurus, there was no reason not to eat, drink, and be merry today if you're going to have a headache from it tomorrow. Overindulging in food
What
and
does that
drink.
mean? Like you can drink but don't get drunk so that you don't have a hangover? Is that what he was
There was
pointing
no
at?
reason. There was no reason to eat, drink, and be merry. I said not. I read it wrong. I keep doing this. There's no reason to eat, drink, and be merry today if you are going to have a headache from it tomorrow. Overindulging in food and drink would not score highly on either duration or purity of pleasure. Pleasures that begin with pain are also inferior. Eating is a pleasure, but it starts with the pain of hunger. Sex is a pleasure, but it starts with the pain of desire. And these pleasures are not as pure as those characterized entirely by the absence of pain, such as rest, good health, and the companionship of friends.
I like this.
Yeah, me too.
It makes sense.
Yes, it does. Just as pleasure was not to be blindly sought after, so not all pain should be avoided. Sometimes, for not all tears are an evil. Sometimes endurance of pain brings greater pleasure than it is worth. Moreover, sometimes endurance of pain brings greater pleasure so that it is worth it.
Yeah.
Moreover, since pleasure and pain are measured quantitatively, pain can be endured in the knowledge that more pleasure has been experienced. Thus, Epicurus, who suffered from poor health throughout his life, could say on his deathbed, "A happy day is this on which I write to you. The pains which I feel could not be greater, but all of this opposed by the happiness which the soul experiences, remembering our conversations of a bygone time. The highest good in Epicureanism is ataraxia, a tranquility derived by the absence of agitation." Ah, yes. And the highest positive pleasure was a society of good friends. It shelters the fearful and gives the pleasure of companionship. He thus replaced the loss of the gods and civic life with the bond that exists among friends. I guess we can leave off there. There you go into the orthopraxy here. To achieve the best pleasure, Epicurus counseled his disciples to live a quiet, secretive life apart from society, avoiding responsibilities of public life like holding office, or social life like getting married. This avoids the pain of ambition and fear caused by others. Interestingly, despite his rejection of the gods as having any bearing on human life, Epicurus encouraged his followers to worship the gods. This was partly for the sake of conformity, but also because the gods are perfect beings who deserve worship and honor. Moreover, people receive aesthetic pleasure from contemplating their perfect existence. That's true, or that's acceptably true.
Well, I mean, he also was recognizing that it's just built into people to need a higher power. You know, I think that that thing is interesting just in itself. Like nobody really escapes that. Even the ones who are atheists are often like angry at God. So one way or the other, they're thinking about him. You know?
Yeah, they're actually obsessed with the thought crimes of others, I think.
Yeah.
So they're just zealots of a different stripe.
Pretty much. I mean, this is why you see people turning science into a religion. Because one way or the other, people need that. I mean, you've seen where they did those kind of brain scans where when people are praying, this really specific little place in your brain lights up.
Oh yeah. Yes, I believe that's something I've been delving into with this Julian Jaynes.
Let's see, I'm going to have to go. You know, I really don't like Walmart, but I like that they're open at 1 a.m. and I can go buy smokes and stuff. But yes, sir. Can I get 2 packs of the orange Pall Malls?
You're now listening to Josh buying cigarettes. We can hear the cash register till. Oh, there goes the laser scanner.
Got to put it back. Oh, you need to put in 74.
74. Oh, what's the month?
June.
Riveting.
Yeah. Hold on, I'll be right back.
So now we're holding on. Holding on for Josh. He's muted his mic.
Hey, what's that picture of? That tile thing?
That is a mosaic of a mermaid done by Louis Edmund Johnson, Eddie Johnson, who's a fine art Renaissance man. Just he was my mentor for a little while. And, he was mentored in turn by Elaine de Kooning, who hangs in the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art. He's no slouch, but
It's a cool picture.
started to appreciate him now that he's gone. Boy, he was fun to be around, that's for sure.
I always think doing tile stuff would be fun. I've never gotten around to doing it.
Apparently he got around to it. Yeah, it was one of his last major expression mediums. He was good.
Well, I mean, you can do really neat stuff with tile. And you know, like I think you could make a ton of money doing like creating mosaic pictures.
Yeah.
Which it's not that hard to do, but like, you know, you put that in somebody's bathroom and they have a work of art to shower with every day. This kind of thing.
I knew a guy who did really good tile work like that.
Yeah, I mean, just beautiful pictures or neat things. I mean, and you can do it with busted up tiles, you know. But I saw a long time ago when I had like a Photoshop filter set, like in the 90s, that I could tilate stuff. was one of the filter packs that I had.
Sure, yeah.
And
The alien skin.
I don't know what it was. I mean, this was in the 90s, right? So, and I got Photoshop in these last year because I guess last year. It's 2017 now. But that one in particular I'm looking for because you can play and just have like 2 or 3 colors and still make really neat stuff. You know, just plug in some photos or whatever, and then you have a map. You don't even have to go.
A pattern to follow. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you have a map. So, I mean, you're an artist, right?
I am. Well,
Yeah, what's one of the first thing they teach you in the basic stuff is like how to blow up a picture. Like you make it small and then throw the grid on it and make it bigger.
Yeah, I've always cheated using an opaque object projector.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, that's the thing that I've wanted to do is get a little projector and start doing big stuff. But it's no different, you know, than using a grid, really. That's why I wouldn't care. And I thought of doing that when I was living in Argentina. And in fact, this girl that we knew, she hung out with a bunch of people that were artists. And she said, oh, man, you know how many people in the city do that? Like, and they have great big paintings and they sit out in the street fair and sell them for hundreds and hundreds of dollars and make their whole living that way. They make good money doing it. And nobody's going to know the difference. And for all intents and purposes, it really does not matter. You know? But that's the way I see it anyway. I'm never like making stuff to try to get famous. I just do it for me. I do my music for that reason. Like, I don't play in clubs and gig. Like, when I played in bands, we barely played out. And those guys wanted to do, like, cover songs. I'm like, no, why are we going to do this if we're just going to play cover songs? We need to make up our own music for the act of creation, you know, for enjoying creating something.
Yeah, we're like-minded on that.
Yeah, and actually, my whole thing is, like, chasing down something unique. And what I came to realize is there's really nothing new under the sun for sure, but at least I could have maybe not discovered it yet. So that's why I didn't want to go to art school, because once I've seen anything, ultimately I'm not going to want to do it anymore. I'll have to do something else.
What's that style, that genre you turned me on to called vapor?
Vaporwave? Yeah, I was calling that chill house, or chill wave. And I just had a few artists that I found that I really liked their stuff, and I didn't really hear more. And one of my buddies, Joaquin, who's just a super talented guy, super duper smart, he sent me a video last week and said, hey, man, have you heard of this style called Vaporwave? I'm like, oh, that's what you call it. You know?
Yes.
So, because chill wave kind of like just, maybe it's not as easy to find as a term. It doesn't stand out as much as it ought to. But it's like those bands like Washed Out. You know Washed Out?
No.
Oh, man, they make some really pretty stuff.
Well, feel free to send me links via chat.
Yeah, I like that lush wall of sound kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for rhythm, I like the house music stuff. I think that can be expressed really well in that genre. Plus, the 4/4 keeps my ADD brain. You talked about like modulating your brain tempo, and that's how I do it. I just have that music ticking all the time when I'm working, and that helps me. Like, I know if I want to be more hyper, I turn the tempo up or down. If I want to calm down or whatever, because like Baroque music is 60 beats per minute, and so that's going to be like your slower, like your 120 beats.
Yeah,
that's like your slow deep house kind of stuff. It's not that fast. It sounds very tranquil because it's actually just a multiple of the 60, and that's why you can find like weird harmonics in there when maybe like if you're an ADD person, but you like stuff at the drum and bass, which is like over, what was it, 200 and I forget what it is. It's quite high. You
I
know,
love the electronica, man. It is pretty cool.
what electronica stuff do you listen to? Because I know you were saying that you like to DJ and stuff as well, or am I remembering that incorrectly?
My tastes are a little darker, like Coil, Nine Inch Nails,
You like the more
industrial.
industrial stuff. Yeah, see,
Yeah, but
like whenever I,
it's kind of happy.
what's that?
I've composed some that came out pretty happy sounding.
Yeah, for me, music is like such a modulator for my emotions
Yeah,
that I realize like I used to love listening to these bands like Sonic Youth and like all that stuff of that genre, but Sonic Youth especially because I was just completely in awe of their originality, you know, and just lush, big wall of sound, amazing, pretty, crazy stuff. It would be like very discordant, but it was like order from chaos as a music. And
kind of like Smashing Pumpkins' first album, Rhinoceros.
yeah, that
was
one of my favorite ones. No,
Yeah.
that one. Well, Rhinoceros was the cool song on there,
Oh, okay.
I think. But I don't know. I had to stop listening to all that stuff because it ultimately was too dark for me. You know?
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah.
Too negative.
Yeah, and maybe it just was like reminding me of that part of my life too. You know, where I had those emotions. But whenever I got into house music, it was like thump, 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 and it gets you dancing, gets you moving. Is more associated with life than this dark inner corner of our psyche kind of thing.
I'll buy that.
Yeah. Plus, I was going dancing a lot. I felt great. Even if I didn't take drugs, I would have a great time. I would be happy. My blood flowed. I lost weight. I was in shape.
But
Enjoyed
you didn't
myself.
take drugs.
Oh yeah, I took a lot of drugs, but some of my best nights were nights without drugs.
Honky, can you make it?
What's up?
Poor Honky. He's trying to climb up. His back hips don't work, so he's got to pull himself up with his forearms.
Mm. But I think that like that, if you just pick out the beat that you want, you know, you can program how much energy and how much excitement your brain is having. You know?
That's true, and I feel compelled to get back into it. I don't know why. I feel like I've got something of a paralysis of analysis going on. Today on Actualized, for his first thing of the day of the year, Leo on actualized.org did a pre-mortem of anything you're trying to accomplish, as opposed to a post-mortem. In other words, to try to anticipate those major points where you know you're going to fuck it up.
Well, I don't know. Any of this stuff, what I think about it is like if it works for you, like if you're tripping on that way, like you get into a brain meme and you're tripping on those thoughts and that's working for you, you're obviously going to go to different levels of it, and not everybody's going to get it or be ready for it. You know, like you have to take what works for you and use that.
Good advice. Good advice. So, hey, well, I guess before this conversation turns boring, I should, we've been at it, what, about an hour now?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
This public, I have 0 subscribers.
Doesn't mean people can't find it and listen to it, though.
Right. And so if, you know, what I love about YouTube is there's people making content.
Yeah.
And I love people.
People person.
Yeah. But not in a sentimental way.
I don't think you can. You know what they say is like you can't love other people unless you love yourself.
Right.
I think that's like kind of short-sighted. Like if you can't love other people, you can't love yourself also. And
kind of a two-way deal.
yeah, it's a two-way thing. You can't have one without the other. And people that don't love themselves, like, yeah, they need to forgive themselves and let go and stuff. But at the same time, um, sometimes like the best way to get out of a depression is work in a soup kitchen, helping people who are less fortunate, or doing good deeds. Like you feel like shit that day, like take advantage of helping somebody if you can. You know.
Well, I just try to keep a mindful awareness and not worry about having faith and feeling good.
But you have to feel good. That's the point.
Well, I don't always feel good, and it's not always going to feel good to do what you got to do, right?
No, but that's like why Epicurus was smart.
Well, he was spot
Sometimes
on.
you have to, yeah, you have to like endure some shit to have the real stuff sometimes.
I'll buy that.
Yeah. I
Man,
mean, you can't, we don't feel good every day, but we can modulate that stuff and get on with our life.
yeah, it just turns out to be hollow.
I don't know. I feel like I'm past that.
Yeah, I'm kind of growing past it too.
I'm more obsessed with, or maybe obsessed isn't the right word, but like moving forward and knowing and doing what I know I'm supposed to do. I've come to realize that like if you know you're supposed to do something and you don't do it, you injure yourself.
I still haven't figured out what I'm supposed to do. So I'm just doing stuff like this in the meantime, like trying to uh like help other people connect and things like that, like act like a hub.
Well, that's always good. But I mean, like what I live by this philosophy for a long time, and I still do mostly. I just don't really think about it in the same way. I'm not as big of a hippie as I used to be. Um, or at least I've calmed down about it, I suppose. But um, if you see everything is connected, and I'm sure I told you this before, I must have on the other night when I was drinking, but it's like you leave a trail behind you because everything's connected. So you're constantly, whatever energy you put into the system goes on to the next person and the next person and the next person,
Right.
And so, like, for example, if somebody cuts you off or if you cut somebody off in traffic, they might go to work and yell at their secretary who doesn't have sex with her husband, who that night, because she's fussy, and now he gets frustrated and takes it out on somebody at his work or his kids and so on, right? But the same thing is true in good deeds and spreading good energy. And most of the stuff that you spread, you're not going to see the result of it. But I think it's important to be mindful to know that this exists so that you can try to spread as much good energy as possible. And it seems like you
I get a
work
good
on
deal.
that. And
Yeah.
yeah, that should be something that you should be satisfied about, that I'm not doing things to leave a bad trail. And that in itself is a big deal.
I suppose it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can like yourself for that. And so, like my mom once told me, and I think this is true, if you always do the best that you can, even if you're misinformed and don't do it right and
Right.
screw up,
Even if you're horribly mistaken, you've
you
still.
can't be, but yeah, you can be sad about being mistaken, but at least you can fix it, you know, or at least you can fix it by not doing that again. But if you just don't do it, what you're supposed to do and don't do the best at it, you're already cheating yourself,
That's
but
good advice. You're right.
yeah, if you always do the best you can, it's hard to be regretful.
Well,
And
I have to say that I have to own the fact that I haven't done my best in 2016, but that's okay. I can do better.
yeah, I mean, listen, part of the thing of doing your best is constantly improving. That's why we have the original sin problem, because we can never do it perfectly. But if you're always trying, if you're always putting your best effort, you're going to get better and better and better at it anyway.
That's encouraging. You're right. You're absolutely right. I agree. So don't cheat yourself.
Yeah, it's all about that. I mean, it's all together. Like this thing where we try to polarize it and say us versus them, and so on. Like we all live in this place together. This is all we have, really. We don't have another planet to go hop to and hang out with those people. It doesn't exist. You know, we're treating this.
Even if you've done your best, there's always going to be those who are there to tell you, why it wasn't your best.
Well, yeah, but you do notice though that if you brag and talk about stuff, you leave yourself open to that sort of criticism. If you just do your best quietly, if you do such an amazing job that it knocks everybody over, you'll get a lot of praise, and then some people being jealous. There's nothing you can do about that. That's their problem.
Do not react to what others say about you, whether praise or blame. And do not insult yourself. Do not praise yourself nor insult yourself.
Yeah, let other people praise you. Like we can be satisfied in the good things that we do, and I think all of us fall victim to praising ourselves a little bit too much sometimes. But we get the result of that too. When we go bragging to somebody, then they like to knock us down, and
self-justification thing, and sometimes it's overcompensating for insecurity.
Absolutely. I think that often is what it is, but I don't know. It's interesting. It's hard for me to verbalize everything I'm thinking about this right now from living with like the South American people, where they had certain kind of qualities, a bunch of them that would be amazing, but then it would also breed an overconfident kind of
a pride or arrogance.
A little bit of sometimes that could translate into arrogance. Like I would notice that the moms didn't spank their kids too much. They would spend all this time like teaching them and being good with them. No, honey, you don't want to do that. You want to hurt me? No, I don't want to. So they would reason with them, right?
That's good.
It was amazing. But
peaceful.
There's another. Yeah, but there was another side to it where there would be some kids that would pop out that would just be so spoiled that they're like the antithesis of cool.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Very,
like very cold-hearted and very
very
self-aggrandizing.
Yes. And those people would just be horrible, or at least like dealing with them on that level would be, the part where they're talking big about themselves or whatever. So it's quite interesting. I like so much about that culture down there, but it's not without its flaws either. Like sometimes I talk so romantically about it. People are like, oh, that just sounds like they're much better. And in my mind, I think like, oh, these are all the things that are better about them. But I also took, the things that were good from here and then went and found this other stuff. And I try to just pay attention to the good things of each culture. I think that's what kind of is what you can do when you're traveling. If you can take only the good stuff from each place that you go and go on to the next place and see how they see it, and don't take the bad and just take the good if you're able to.
Yeah.
It's quite a way to get some wisdom about you.
Good advice, man. Definitely. Yeah, I think I needed to go back into school as much as I
what do you want to do?
I'll have to figure out a way. Maybe like there's some continuing education or something I could do where I could pay for it as I go.
What do you want to get educated on?
Oh, you name it.
Why not get a speed reading book? You can speed read, can't you? Or you can read pretty quick?
Not really.
That makes a huge difference in how fast you can educate yourself.
Yeah, reading is like work for me. So just doing that alone is I'm able to understand that I've done my best because I've done work.
Well, what is the painful part of reading for you? Like what don't you like about that setup?
Nothing. I think you know what I'm talking about when you say listening to an audiobook is a lot easier than reading one.
Yeah, but I can read really fast, you know.
Yeah.
I've never practiced enough to get up to like the good speed reading levels, but you'd be surprised how easy reading very quickly is if somebody shows you how to do it. It's actually not that hard at all, and the concept is that your brain is going at what they think may be clocked at hundreds of thousands of words a minute. And so what happens, at least in this, in these theories, is that your quote unquote left brain is reading it verbally to the right brain, which your right brain just listens and makes concepts and pictures and
Fascinating.
3D images. So
I could look that up on YouTube and find out how to do it.
well, it's a really simple. I bought one of those. You know how like Barnes and Noble will have that whole section of books that are like $2 or $5 or $10, and they're normally much more expensive.
Yeah, clearance.
Yeah, and it's always there, and it's usually all the books that they've reprinted 5 bazillion copies of themselves. Anyway, I got. Let me see if I can find the copy of it that I have here, because most of my books are in storage. But I have this one. It's the Evelyn Wood 7-Day Speed Reading and Learning Program. So you can learn to read super fast in 7 days. And there's another one called Photo Reading, which you might actually like a little bit more. I just say that from the few discussions that we've had, and knowing you that
you know that everything you want to know is on YouTube. Somebody's teaching it.
Yeah, that's true. But in this case, having a book makes you.
It's necessary to the process, you're saying?
Well, maybe, yeah. Maybe the photo reading is better for using a tablet or a screen, because you're basically just flickering the image of the page in front of you, which is ultimately what you're kind of trying to get at with speed reading.
Well, I'm going to look into it.
Yeah, here, check it out. This is why you should be excited. Since, if you've noticed, when you're reading, you hear your inner voice reading that inside of your head, right? And at some point, you trail off thinking about other stuff.
Right.
And this is why we think that we don't like reading. Well, it isn't that we don't like taking in the information. It's that inner voice is going way too slow for the right brain to pick up and absorb. It gets bored. Yeah, it gets bored and it starts thinking about other stuff because it can't concentrate going that slow.
That's fascinating.
Yes. So the trick is like and I picked this up literally in a couple, like maybe 45 minutes. Once I got through the part of reading the who's and what's and whys, it starts telling you, okay, look, just put your hand flat on the book. The book needs to be spread in such a way that it's not distracting, the pages are not jumping up. But and you need to be in a quiet place so that you can concentrate. But you put your hand flat on the book and you use your index finger and make your eye follow the top of your index finger where the word is.
Yeah, sort of. I've done that, but I wasn't a practice that I stuck to.
Okay, well, eventually, like once you realize that you can keep your eye on the top of your finger as opposed to the words, or like jumping around in the sentence, you just make your hand go faster and faster and faster, and your brain will automatically just pick it up. So I went from like 300 words a minute to or maybe 150 words a minute to something like 650 words a minute in literally 15 minutes.
Wow.
Maybe a half an hour. Yeah, and once you start doing that, you can kind of blow through stuff, even if you don't get up to the like 900 to 1200 minute or word per minute range, which is when your left side just decides this is too fast, I can't keep up verbalizing it, and it just shuts off, and it just all starts going into your right brain instead. Now, is it left, right brain? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. The concept still works.
I'm going to have to look into that. No, I appreciate the suggestion. It sounds like very helpful advice.
Yeah, if you go to school, they're going to tell you, you're going to pay them to tell you which books to read. if if um
Well, it's
if you
not
just can read quickly, you can just buy all the books and read all of them really fast, and
yeah.
there's nothing to slow you down at all. And plus you don't pay a lot of money for it. So you're a smart guy, you have an intuition as to where to look and who to pay attention to and so on.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said for the routine of going to class at a regular interval and all that.
Yeah, I can't agree with that too. And maybe it is that you are looking for that structure. I'm just more of a, what did you call me, an autodidactic?
Autodidact, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I am. I don't, if I go to school, I start arguing with my teachers too much, and they usually like it because I'm polite and I'm not disrespectful to them. I'm just like probing and I want to know. And their simplistic answers have just never really been enough for me, if that makes sense.
Well, the
And
good ones don't have anything to prove, so they accommodate that curiosity, that eagerness.
yeah, and those ones tend to like it, but still, I remember certain things in school asking teachers about physics problems, my science teachers, and they just couldn't answer. Because I had a conundrum in my head. Well, if this thing is like this and this thing is like that, however, if this thing is like this and this thing is also like that, so which one is true? And they would start on one answer and then I would argue the other way, and they couldn't answer me. They would get confused and be like, oh, okay, you need to learn that in somebody else's class or whatever.
Typical.
Well, I mean, because they didn't really know the answer.
Right.
And one of the things that I've learned at this age, and I think you must have too, because you got a couple of years on me, is that they're schools of thought, not real answers. Like the electric universe stuff is awesome. I think it's like physics
right,
2.0.
It's also a school of thought, right?
It is also a school of thought. And like, whereas Neil will say, I'll take these things as fact, you point out that that's a belief system, and he automatically doesn't like that you're calling it a belief system because he finds it to be true. Whereas
right.
By definition it is a belief. You believe this thing or you don't believe this thing, i.e. it is by definition a belief system.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. But I'm kind of like you. I throw a wide net. I like to read a lot of different stuff.
Don't hurt to listen.
Yeah, and you just filter it out. Like, well, I don't agree with that. It doesn't mean I can't hear it. But I mean, there is a point of diminishing returns where you're reading something that you inherently know is a lie, and the person is just trying to coerce you. It'd be like,
yeah, don't let people troll you.
Yeah. You can't let yourself get trolled too much. What does the scripture say? Don't throw your pearls before the swine. Like, there's no point in having an argument with somebody that just is never going to be open-minded. They're just there just to rip you a new asshole, and that's it.
Well, I've got nothing to prove, so I'm great.
Right, but I mean, there's no point in having that sort of heated debate when you think that you're trying to be open-minded, and they're the furthest thing from being open-minded. They're just only there to crush you.
Well, they'll start to interrogate, is what I've noticed. The Inquisition. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Llamas!
So, yeah, so you're okay if I leave this talk up?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, that's only my second talk. It's first me and Troy McLaughlin, now me and Joshua Costea. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Costia? How do you say your name? Costia?
Costi.
Costi. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
The A.
Yeah, it's Romanian, actually.
Oh, it was very nice.
Yeah, I've met some Romanian people, and they're like, hey, I'm Joshua Costi, and they're like, I thought your name was Costi. Like, probably, I don't know,
Well, Josh, it's been very engaging. I appreciate I'm going to look into that speed reading deal and see if I can't become more proficient and get more out of reading.
Yeah, you might check that one. And there's also one called photo reading, which is even faster, and it's been tested. But it incorporates like using certain kind of it's not meditation. It's, I don't even know what to call it. The guy calls it, some kind of streaming. And what you basically do is you close your eyes and let your imagination run free, because the concept is that you're constantly dreaming, even though your conscious brain is awake and kind of blocks it out with a squelcher type of mechanism. And so this is how your input is always going into your brain and constantly being associated with things that are sometimes and oftentimes random. But what you do is you try to describe what you're seeing verbally, and you try to describe it with all 5 of your senses. And it's a pole bridging exercise where, it gets like your sight and your hearing and your sense of touch. Between those cortexes, it gets fatter bridges made.
That sounds very useful.
Well, it'll also get you into a theta state in, under 15 minutes, which is very useful for learning. When your brain is quiet, you can absorb more things. So, and it's also a way to like dig out issues and problems, and it's a sort of almost kind of like a meditation in that it assumes that your brain is thinking about stuff. So if you have a problem, you might come to a place where there's a door there, or a box that needs to be opened, or whatever, like some kind of container. And inside of that thing, you're going to get a message where your subconscious or your superconscious is trying to tell you something. And the guy was explaining that he was teaching this class how to do it. And this one guy was really stumped. He couldn't figure out why he couldn't get it moving. Like he was stuck on this image. He was like, well, what's the image? And the guy's like, it's just a tire. It's a tire with a wheel in it. And he's like, okay, well, can you describe to me the tire? And suddenly the guy just got up and ran out of the class, because his subconscious was trying to tell him that it had noticed like a nail in his wife's tire, and it didn't hit his conscious brain. That's quite interesting. So, like basically he ran up out of the class to go call his wife to tell her, hey, look, you got a nail in the tire. You need to take that past the place like immediately, or call the tow truck guys or whatever.
Do you have any videos on this?
No, I have a book from him. It's called The Einstein Factor, and it's Win Winger and another guy, and they go through, it's basically like capturing and making use of the power of your subconscious, which is like the majority of what is going on in your brain.
Or superconscious.
Yeah, or superconscious, whatever you want to call it. It's a concept that we use. What's that?
I suppose we have both.
Maybe. I mean, they're concepts, right? So,
right. Yeah, there you go.
It's not like somebody can make a literal map of this thing. It's just our logically trying to define something that's there. But it's got all these really neat things in that book. That's a really cool book if you want to check it out, because he's got a whole chapter in there on photo reading. And him and this other guy invented that thing as well. And it works so well that what they wanted to do is get people like take and just take these people fresh out of high school, get them to go through their whole first 2 years of university, and then test out. And basically by using these methods that they have for super fast learning and critical thinking skills and things like this. But like with photo reading only, you can just, I forget how fast the flash rate is, but it's quite fast. But you have to get into this mode of theta state, be able to concentrate on what you're seeing, and also like relax yourself enough to let it come in. And then you need
great objectives for this year starting out. Give me something positive to get into.
Well, it's what they're trying to do is teach you meta skills.
I can see that.
Like reading in itself is a meta skill, but when everybody reads, being able to read 50 times faster than everybody else becomes like a really big deal. And even if you don't remember everything you read, you're going to remember the skeleton of the book and probably be able to go and find the answer really fast to a question.
Okay. I find that very helpful.
Yeah, listen, if you can do that kind of stuff, you can go. I've never gotten myself to just sit down and practice the photo reading thing, because part of it is that you have to believe that it's possible. Like if you can't believe it's possible, it's not going to work. But they've shown conclusively that it can work.
I totally recognize that. Yeah, no, I have no problem with that kind of
Yeah,
approaching with the initiate level of trust.
no, trusting yourself. But I mean, I think the thing that they did to test it was they took a couple their best student, and the school wanted to test the universities made a board that they had pitched this idea to, and they used a projector to flash, I don't know, 12 pictures a second or 100 pictures a second. I can't remember. And then they tested him to see how much he had absorbed. And it turned out he was at like 75%. And we're talking, what they did was they took a bunch of patents, and with like diagrams and stuff that he had to label the parts and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's completely abstract and weird. Nothing that he was expecting, nothing that he could have known previously, really.
So
It's pretty neat.
yeah. Well, hey, I gotta let you go.
Okay, I'll let you go.
No, I appreciate it, Josh. Let's do this again soon, because I think maybe we could make some kind of regular thing. Maybe we could talk about having a regular conversation topically.
Are you trying to like get rich off of this?
No,
I only ask that because I find it hard to
0 subscribers,
imagine.
man. But your advice
well, I
that
mean,
you just gave me may be just the thing for somebody who needs to hear it. Yeah, no, I wouldn't monetize my YouTube channel, because I think commercials on a YouTube channel are lame.
well, I wouldn't care if you monetized it.
No,
I'm just saying,
more
like, it's not easy to do that. Like, there's one guy I listened to that he's down there. What state is Sedona in? Arizona? You're in Arizona, right?
Close enough. I'm in New
Yeah,
Mexico.
there's a guy down there, and not in Sedona anymore. He's in another place, but he's trying to build a UFO, and he's like a, late 60s engineer. He did hardware, like those kind of controller systems, embedded systems, and he has like really interesting guests on there, like big people, and I'm pretty sure that nobody knows who in the hell is he. But he's got years of weekly podcasts. I think sometimes he's like, maybe he has more than once a week, but I like this one that he did that was every week. It was a progressive technology hour, and the guy was not he's not a good speaker, but I love listening to him. It's just like absolute nerddom.
Well, if you have time, can you send me a link? Because that sounds like something I'd enjoy.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about him is him and his wife are into the channeling kind of stuff and the ascended masters and light worker kind of people. I think that's more his wife's thing.
Right.
Which I find creepy. I don't want to know about that stuff.
Well, I've never communicated with any of those guys, so.
Well, you understand what I mean. Like, it's just something that I abstain from. But I do like his brain. He's got a fantastic engineer brain, and he does not talk like he knows everything. When he talks about gravity, he says, well, I think it has an electrical component to it. Like he's smart in the way that he's objectively looking at stuff. But he's got little videos of experiments that he's done, like with gyroscopes and things that are just so simple, anybody could do them. But I've never seen almost anybody talking about them. Like, unless you're like a big lathe weight aficionado, you probably wouldn't even know this stuff existed.
No, but you're opening another can of worms, and I want to go raid the kitchen before I get yelled at for doing it too late. Okay.
I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for coming on, Josh. I'll talk to you. I'll message you in the very near future.
All right.
Okay. Bye.